Bam! What is going on, folks? I am hoping this is working. I'm being quite ambitious with how I'm setting this thing up. I have a Rode mic connected to my phone on a tripod that I brought, or stand that I brought from my house. And do me a favor, whoever's watching, I see a couple of you guys on already. Just give me a shout. Let me know that you could see me, hear me, all that good stuff. I have another device here to check if I'm trying to, get this thing working right. But somebody giving you some feedback. Bam! Jamie in the house. Voodoo Man. What's going on, brother man? Good to see the both of you. All right, good. Seems like things are working. All right, so let's start off with the regular protocol of housekeeping. What's up, Aaron? MasterChim.com. Go there, get my emails. Now, I just have been sending out a email sequence called the Wise 9 these last couple of days. I believe today, number 2 went out. Cherrytown Vibe in the house. What's going on? Corey, what's going on, brother man? I usually write these emails just in the morning, so I very rarely schedule emails out ahead. And, it's it's certainly the more efficient thing to do, to have just like a writing day, or just a writing session every single day where I just bang out these emails to give myself a little lead time. But I'll be honest, every time that I've ever done that, it's really sort of detached me somewhat from the ritual of doing the emails, and it's something that I enjoy. And every once in a while, I noticed also that I'd write a bunch of emails, like a week's worth of emails in a row, and then there would be something that I wanted to discuss, and it's sort of like I have to now either wait to put it at the tail end of what was going on, or I have to interrupt the sequence that I already pre-designed. So, all that being said, it's been a pain in the ass. So, yeah, this morning was number 2 on the Wise 9. Sharing is sharpening was today's. A lot of these things, were very counterintuitive, when I learned them. And there were things that I learned in the martial arts that just really, would not have been concluded by me had I just gone by my logic at the time. But that is sort of what experience tends to do. It tends to remind you what reality actually is. And I'll say that, I've said before that when the truth is counterintuitive, that means your intuition is untrained, right? So I usually say retarded, but I'm trying to sound a little bit more, eloquent in how I'm describing it now. So right now, my family and I are down in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. I rented a villa for the week on the beach here, and it's pretty amazing, I got to say. Now, it's off season, and clearly, I remember I fucked up somewhat when I signed up for this place, because it's an incredible area, and anybody that's ever been to Hilton Head, South Carolina, like, this place is pretty cool. Um, but I misread the listing for the space that I'm renting. So when I was looking it up, I knew it was off season. I knew it was going to be chilly. I didn't want to go to Florida. I just didn't want to go to Florida. I don't have anything against Florida. I just was not in the mood to go to Florida. I tend to drive instead of fly. And, when there's 7 of you, 6 of us, and my mother-in-law is in town from Brazil, you know, it also is certainly more financially effective to not fly with these rates going on now for flights. And that being said, I really like driving. Like, I would rather drive. So what I wound up doing was just renting a vehicle, big ass minivan, vehicle, and we just drove down. And when I was doing this all off season, I knew that it wasn't going to be 80 degrees and sunny, in South Carolina in December. But I also know the average temperature is usually high 50s, low 60s. And for me, uh, that's fine. You know, like I haven't gone in the water yet. I will go in the water probably by the end of the day. Every morning I've been waking up, going onto the beach, seeing the sunrise on the beach, doing my movement stuff on the beach, doing some reading on the beach. Shout out to Brian Wilton. I'm working through his book. I just put a picture of it on Instagram this morning. But all that being said, when I was looking at the listing to rent this place, it said seasonally heated pool. So I'm like in a complex. Like one of the things they have down here are these complexes with, villas, I can't tell you the difference between a fucking villa, a townhouse, a condo. I have no fucking idea. They're all apartments to me, right? So they call their apartments villas in Hilton Head Beach, right? So whatever. So these villas have a pool that on the listing, the description of the listing says seasonally heated pool. Now, this is on me. I own my shit, right? And I had to have a moment to remind myself of that when I eventually got here and realized that the pool was not heated. So I contacted the owner of the place, very nice lady, and said, apparently the heating is not on the pool. Now, this is a complex, so it's not just like her pool. It's not like, hey, bitch, turn the fucking heat on. It wasn't like that. It's like, seasonally heated pool. I was going by my logic and thinking, well, if it's a seasonally heated pool, that means that when there's no more heat outside, they put heat inside, right? So it's like you'd think during the winter there'd be heat in the fucking pool because it's fucking winter and you got a pool. Apparently, no. Apparently, they supplement heat during the warmer months to always keep the water temperature at a certain spot. And obviously, this is one of those things where it didn't make sense to me, but now having the context of having it explained to me, it's like, all right, I guess that's a better way to be a fucking merchant, right? But it's cheaper to heat it in the summertime and spring, summer, late season. But it's fucking freezing right now. So my boys already went in. I'll go in today or tomorrow. But it's not like we're enjoying a great time swimming while we're down here. That wasn't really the thing. I knew that wasn't going to be an issue as far as the beach was concerned, but I kind of wanted a pool. What are you guys saying here? Guys, I'll tell you right now, I didn't have anything really material planned. So if you guys have questions, you want to talk about some shit, I'll talk about my vacation, what's been going on, but I don't know how entertaining that's going to be for you. Jamie says, you miss stuff when you fly or even drive. Mind you, miss stuff when you walk too. Absolutely. And it's funny. I have my wife has like a Yukon. I have a Honda Odyssey minivan. I rented a Chrysler Pacifica, whichever like minivans they had in stock. I didn't want to drive a van. So minivan, we fit perfectly, right? So I was like, I get a minivan, but the one I got, it's like a 2023 or whatever the fuck, the latest ones that the rental spots have. And it looks like the fucking, the Star Trek, like it is just incredible. So when the kids got in, they were super ecstatic because it's got all the fancy frills and stuff. They could plug their fucking things in and there's little screens and stuff. And I tried to get the nicest one they had. And so it has all these amenities. So point being, the trip down was almost a trip for the kids, or part of the vacation for the kids too. Just to what you guys are saying, even Cherrytown Vibe says road trips are better for the family, provides more time to bond. Absolutely, and you stop to eat, you stop to the rest area. It becomes a thing. You got to understand too, in the context of my family. My kids aren't fucking spoiled the way a lot of kids are spoiled these days. So I'll give you an example of the concept I'm referring to. If you are somebody who, specifically, not even an analogy, my kids eat dessert on Saturdays, right? On Saturdays, they're allowed to have dessert. Now, I will fully admit this is my wife's protocol, right? But it is an incredible one. My kids have been raised like this. Now, on vacation, admittedly, we're getting a little crazy, but normally once a week, they're allowed dessert on Saturdays, after dinner. They don't want, nor do they expect dessert during the week. When they have dessert, they eat it with a level of appreciation that even I don't have for dessert anymore, right? And it's because they're not, it's not overabundant. It's just, basic like economics, supply and demand, right? Well, my children to that point, referring now to the road trip, my kids are homeschooled. We live in PA. We go to the gym to work out. We go to the jungle gym to train jujitsu. But they're not in schools. They're not. I don't leave my kids with people. We're not all over the place jet setting, and it's just a different lifestyle for them. So it is a very I would say positive experience for me to see them so excited and have so much gratitude for things that so many other people just take for granted, right? So yesterday we rented bikes, and my kids all know how to ride a bike. My daughter, she's the one that we put training wheels on just in case, but all of them are decent bike riders. But we haven't, I mean, and this isn't New York City here, but just driving around town, riding the bikes around town, and this place is great for bike paths and stuff. But this is just a completely new experience, and they were so fucking excited to get on a rented bike, which not expensive at all, just this bike, and we're just riding around. My wife was there. My daughter, she had training wheels, so it kept us at a modest pace to say the least. But the kids had an incredible time. Yesterday morning, woke them all up at 6:50. We're right on the beach here, so woke them all up, got them moving. 6:55, we were out the door, and 6:56, we're on the beach. And yesterday, we got to see the sunrise on the beach. Uh, Incredible experience for my kids. Incredible experience for me, for my wife. Um, just simple though, just simple, right? And sometimes, we know this in other ways. Parents referring to those of you that have been around kids, can relate. They get these big fancy things, these expensive things, and it holds their interest. But then you'll see a kid, playing with a fucking box, or give him some markers, and he'll start drawing stuff, and action figures, and he's playing make believe and use imagination and everything. Like, kids need to interact with their environment. Kids need to move their bodies. Kids need to see the relationship between all these things. It's not easy, stopping ourselves from just giving the kids, hey, their tablets, and hey, just watch something, or hey, just do something. My kids don't have social media. They have the messenger kids, so they can message their friends who are the other children of the jungle gym. So it's not like they're connecting with kids they don't know in the real world. But they don't have social media. They're not allowed to post anything on the internet. It's just a different lifestyle, and it's something that is so far past where, like, guys, I'm 47, people of my generation and older, we grew up a completely different way. But comparing how my kids are growing up now to their peers in society, it's night and day, and you see the difference. I enjoy that when my family, when we go out to eat and stuff, it is literally at least 80% of the time the waiter or waitress comes over at some point and says, you're whatever you're doing with your kids is great. These are the most well-behaved kids. These are, the kids' manners are incredible. You don't see that. And I know it's not, and I explain this to my kids, it's not that you guys are just so incredible. I mean, you guys have good manners. It's just that it is a contrast to what the waiters and waitresses usually see. So my advice, I guess it's turning into, some advice to pass out is, your kids don't need all the things that the other kids need just because the other kids have them, or just because your kid says he needs them. Your kids, the universals hold true. You have to introduce them to movement. You have to get them out there in nature. You got to get them to explore and express themselves. Who are they, and how do they relate to the things around them? You go to the beach, and I went there. I was there yesterday morning. We were there in the afternoon riding bikes on it. And then we came back. I went back with my mother-in-law and the kids. And we're just hanging out, and the kids are, you leave them, and they just do their own thing. They just, one of my sons is drawing. One of my sons is, seeing if, he could throw whatever the fuck was sticks, in the water. Like another, at some point, they literally started drawing lines in the sand, and we had to have a long jump contest. I didn't even fucking win, just bullshit. I told them I'm gonna get another go at it today. But the kids are going to do their own things. Now, what were we doing? What did we went to the beach and stood there. We didn't have toys, buckets, shovels. We didn't have their tablets. We didn't have chairs. We just went to the beach, and the kids found something to do. And a lot of times we adults, we get in the way of that, So like when you look at the vacation that I planned, my wife knows this is me. Like this is what you're going to get from me. But when if I ask the average American family, like, okay, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to drive 14 hours down to South Carolina. We're going to get a villa, and the villa is going to have a pool that's not heated. We're going to be on the beach where pretty fucking cold. But we could be active. We could ride bikes and stuff. I think tomorrow we might be doing a boat trip or a kayak thing to see dolphins. Like that's the one thing. It's like, okay, let's be tourists, because I mean, who doesn't want to see fucking dolphins? But aside from that, it's like it's just we're hanging out. I bought Trivial Pursuit. We have Monopoly. We watched a movie last night. My wife and mother-in-law have been cooking. We ate the first night we were here. Went out to this incredible spot. But even that, just spending every meal like in a restaurant, like just hanging out here. This is a new location. We're doing new things. The whole schedule is different. The fact that we're all sitting down and eating together and watching a movie together, like, we don't have the ability to do that all the time. I'm usually working. My wife has responsibilities at the house and stuff, and she's working, in other words, and, the kids have their own chores and shit. So it's just different. It's just different. And a lot of times, vacation is sort of like a almost like a traveling meditation, right? And I would say the big part of that, the value of that is disconnecting from everything that you're usually doing. It's not always necessarily what it is that you're going to do when you get there. I think the bigger value, or at least the foundation of the value of going on vacation, is that you're disconnecting from all the stuff that tends to monopolize your bandwidth from day to day. Let me see what other comments we have here. Jamie says we have seasonally heated lakes. Buddha Man says doing burpees and kettlebell swings. Fucking A, get it. Cherrytown Vibe says that's how I used to travel to North Carolina with my great grandmother. We'd be in a new fancy minivan singing old songs and playing What Was That Last Sign? Wade says, don't forget to hit the like button, ladies and gentlemen. Not sure if it helps, but it can't hurt to help overcome barriers. Man, look, you guys are doing better taking care of my channel than I do. But yeah, I appreciate that, Wade. Guys, definitely like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that stuff. What's up, Derek? What's up, James? Goose says, those sunrises on the beach with the family is my favorite part of beach vacation. I'll tell you, there's nothing like it. One of my sons, Kaiden, my third oldest son, my wife and I usually, when referring to the kids, we just refer to them by numbers. So he would be 3, right? Kaiden has he's had this cough, and he's one of these kids that just refuses to slow the fuck down. And so I just didn't wake the kids up this morning to go to the beach and watch the sunrise. But yesterday we were there. It was a little chilly, which actually was pretty cool because everyone had to get all cozy together under we forgot to bring a blanket, but we had the beach towels and stuff. And it's just an incredible experience, watching the sun come up. I put a picture up yesterday of what the sunrise was like, and it was just incredible. There's just nothing like it. And again, it's you, your family, and nature. There needn't to be any middlemen, And what people don't understand, this is one of those things that gets back to the example I made with the dessert. Some people think they need things. You don't fucking need things if they're artificial, if they're man-made. We have to learn to really at least own the fact that we have preferences. There are things we want. There are things we like, but they aren't necessarily what we need, nor are they necessarily what's going to make us better, what's going to improve our situations. Right? So I know a lot of people in my life who they have to smoke weed to relax. I got to smoke weed, or I won't. I get too anxious. I got to relax so I can sleep. And it's like, okay, for how long? Okay, you're smoking weed. I've never smoked weed in my life, but everybody else did. And my whole thing is, okay, all right, you need to smoke some weed to relax and go to sleep. Um, how much longer do you need to do that? Okay, I understand you need it. You need to relax. End of the day, stressed out, anxious. Gotta sleep. Everybody needs sleep. But how long are you going to? Is that just it? I'm somebody who needs to smoke a plant in order to do one of the most basic human functions imaginable. There has to be a different way to look at it. And what I advocate for more generally, more universally, is you don't need any of that. And if you really feel that you do, then at least do yourself a favor and find your way back to the strength that you were born with. Find your way back to the design that we all benefit from. Right? Listen, there's going to be so much shit out there that we just have no input in. Like, shit's going to happen. We don't want to add to that. It's like we don't want to add to that. I'm a homeowner. Right? I've owned a home now, I don't know, 6 years, almost 7 years. It's all a blur, but whatever the fuck it is. One of the things you really don't realize when you own a home is shit breaks for no fucking reason. Now, of course, there's a reason, but you didn't schedule that shit. Like, shit has a way of fucking breaking at the most inconvenient fucking times. It's like, oh man, I'm gonna get this new car. Oh, I'm gonna get this new bike, or I'm gonna, I want to go and buy this thing, this new camera, whatever. Fuck. Oh, there goes the fucking water heater. It's like, oh, I'm gonna do this. Oh, there goes the pump. There goes it. You know, there's so many fucking things that are going to happen in our lives that we cannot anticipate, although they are arguably very normal, to happen. We need to sort of just have a little bit more gratitude, and I would say a little bit more humility when it comes to what our expectations are in terms of convenience, right? And I'm talking about convenience. I'm talking about even luxury. Like, what are our expectations? And now I'm not saying, like, listen, don't have a fancy car, don't have a big fancy house, don't have whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. My whole thing is just make sure it's not costing you more than what it costs monetarily, right? So you'll have people who, like, I'm going to use my kids as an example for a second. Now, my kids are tougher than 99%, of the country. Like, at least I won't put them at the 99th percentile for the world, because there's some poor broke, motherfuckers out there. Um, but my kids, if I say, okay, we're all going to, I don't know, we're going to the movies tomorrow, and then the next day comes, and I go, yeah, we're not going to have time to go to the movies. Some stuff popped up, so we'll find another time to go. My kids will go, okay, it's no big deal. Doesn't mean they don't love the movies when it happens, but they just understand that it's not something to get all emotional over. Especially, and it's not like they understand that inherently. Like, this is a lot of fucking training, a lot of investing in them. It's like I'm the guy that, as they're growing up, if they become over emotional with something, I will articulate to them how now they're never going to get it, or instead of waiting tomorrow, now we'll maybe do it 6 months from now. It's sort of like treating belts in jujitsu. It's like when somebody's super preoccupied about a belt, it's like, yeah, this means that you shouldn't get a belt, because now it incentivizes that artificial, connection to something, and now it gets to the point where people start saying, "I need that." Oh, I need my coffee in the morning. I could say I need my Monster. I don't fucking need it. Like, I love it. Don't get me wrong. But we just need to be able to make that distinction. And a lot of people don't. And before you know it, they have these sort of psychological just reliances on these things that are completely artificial, completely, in the grand scheme of things, unnecessary. It's like, how many of you guys out there, if you didn't have any cell phone, or I was just talking to my kids last night, I want to be able to develop, I'm working on developing my business model to the point where I do not need any electronic devices. In my office, I will, because I do things like this, but carrying a phone and carrying a device, like, I look at it as a fragility. It is a vulnerability of my model, of my lifestyle more generally. So I'm working on it. I'm climbing the ladder. So there are plenty of things that we have that, like, listen, even I will make the concessions of certain things that I have to abide by. I did an interview a couple of weeks ago with my boy Nico. Nico, I don't know if it's Lagan or Lagan. Nico, um, Canadian dude. Great talk he and I had. He came to my house and we spoke for a few hours. And like, one of the things I talked about was that I concede that as much as I train, as much as I advocate for a natural lifestyle and the rituals that keep us connected to those natural lifestyles, I also get electricity from the government grid. Like, I have the lights, I have the heating, equipment, I have, the internet. Like, so believe me, I'm not passing myself off as some fucking, Jeremiah Johnson motherfucker. Like, this is, and so I'm completely honest, when it comes to that. But I am always also conscious of my reliance upon those things. And I'm constantly asking myself, well, if I don't have it, what's going to happen to me psychologically? Am I going to be stressed out because I don't have one of these things that, looking in the biggest of pictures, it's just a fucking luxury. Like, cable's a luxury. It's an argument that electricity is a luxury. You know, many great people have existed without electricity. Like, so it's these things that, it's just, at least at a meditative level, we never lose the relationship with what exactly we have in our life, and our relationship to those things. You know, let me see what's going on here. Cherry Town Vibe says how annoying it is to have fix shit around the house every 2 seconds. Man, you want to know? You want to know what's even more annoying than that? Having to fix shit around the house every couple of seconds and not knowing how to fucking fix anything. Holy fuck! I remember a couple years ago, I redid the bathroom. We had a bathroom upstairs in my house on the first floor, and I redid it. I have no fucking idea how I did that. I must have been just like possessed by some old Bob Vila looking motherfucker, because not that the fucking job is the craftsmanship was that impressive, but I did it. I don't remember what YouTube all day. Like, it was like work for 5 minutes, watch YouTube for 5 minutes, like off and on for a week. But you got to get shit done. It's like, here I am, the man of the house. So who am I? Who's gonna fix it? I look at my wife and my 4 kids, my fucking dumbass dog. It's like, can any of you guys do it? It's like, nope. It's like, this is what my dad must have felt like growing up. Holy shit, I have those moments at least once fucking week. Where it's like, oh, this is why pops used to get aggravated. Jamie says, if it makes you happy, then why the hell are you so sad? Oh man, such a great line. Great, such a great line, and absolutely true. And that's what you get with people. Like, think about it. Think about how, and I'm preaching to the choir. If you guys are following me, like, anybody that hates me and listens to the video or watches my videos live, they're usually saying something. Or at least I guess that's a little presumptuous on my part. Maybe they're just little cowardly bitch asses that watch and just seethe and yell from afar. But preaching to the choir, as I think I am, it's still, I think, valuable to just think about how everybody is fucking miserable in society today. Everybody is fucking miserable. I have coaching students that just at different levels of business success, right? And I got a couple of guys who are, heavy hitters, and they do really, really well. And And I'm always grateful that I get to play a role at times with them, sort of traversing certain obstacles that were keeping them away from that next sort of depth of success, and what it is that they're doing. But there are times where, you know, I'll have a guy, who's making $10,000 a month, and 2 years later, he's making 100,000 a month. And I know I played a role in helping him navigate that. And there have been times where I've shared, because I'm so happy for them. I've shared, oh yeah, one of my guys, did this, and I'll share it with my wife. And she doesn't do it anymore because she understands this piece that I'm describing. But like, she couldn't help in the beginning go, well, how come you're not making 100,000 a month if you help this guy do it? And listen, valid question, but it gets back to the point that I was making earlier. I love my life. I love my family. I love my wife. I love my lifestyle. I love my tribe. I want to become more successful, but not at the expense of the balance that my life has, not at the expense of just the eagerness that I face every day. And like, listen, I ain't got it great at, like, I get shitty, situations like anybody else, but there's this balance in my life that is the priority to me, because it's the same type of balance that if, one of these shit hit the fan scenarios pops off, like, I know my family, like, we're in a rough spot. Don't get me wrong, but we're gonna be solid. Everybody's gonna be on mission. Everybody's gonna understand what it is, And I think that some people, they really, it always, for me, it always comes back to a lack of gratitude. It comes back to just not really appreciating, the things that we have. Um, Not that, I mean, I do think, but not. I'm not making the point in that if you're not grateful, these things, you'll lose these things, or nobody will provide them for you anymore. That's a whole nother piece. But the thing is, by having gratitude, it prevents you, almost inoculates you from being entitled to those things. Because once you reach the level of entitlement, now you start running the risk of, should these things ever be taken away from you, now you think you are less than, right? Now you think, these things complete me. These things make me 100%. Without them, I am less than me. And it's a cruel trick that people play on themselves where that's concerned. You get the guys who, they lose their job and they go and kill themselves. Perfectly physically healthy individuals, because of their psychological relationship with the abstract narrative of their life, they'll kill themselves. It's as retarded a fucking thing as I could think of. But think about, like, just the effect that our mindset has on how we approach everything, on how our relationships are with everything. Like the old phrase, stop and smell the roses. It's like, literally, stop and smell fucking roses. Do you even have the capacity to appreciate that? Because that's what you'll get. Parents who won't be around their kids because they need to make extra money. Now, I don't mean extra money in the term of, or in the context of, I have money, but I want some more, or rather, I have money, but I don't have enough to function. That's not extra money. That's parents going and having second, third jobs because they have to get the rest of the money, right? So the rest of the money, Jim Rohn used to have the famous quote, too much month at the end of the money, right? And what I'm saying is, when I say parents that go and get extra money, is all the financial bases are covered, but they think the pursuit of money is the only thing that has value to them. Now, it might be the only thing that has value to them, but I would argue that when it comes to balance, of which I am an advocate for in one's life, like, there is a point where, okay, you got the money. All right, now how about the marriage? How about, the parenting? How about the brotherhood? How about your health, the movement? How about the growth, as an individual? Um, like these things also matter, right? If you guys have ever read Anti-Fragility by Nassim Taleb, I powered through it, and I think he helped make me a better writer because I know he understands what he's saying with absolute clarity. But holy fuck, sometimes it could be a bit cumbersome and laborious, reading his books. But he's a fucking genius, and the concept, for those of you that aren't aware, is, if we say something is fragile, uh, the way he defines it is, any system that encounters some stressor, when it is fragile, it breaks down, right? It becomes less than. Antifragile is a system that, when encountering a stressor, is stimulated by that stressor to grow. So the whole, be anti-fragile, is really, centered around this idea that Nietzsche, whatever doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So if that's the case, how much of our lives is dedicated towards maintaining the stressors? How much of our lives, in contrast, is about maintaining the avoidance or the buffers from pressure? Rich people kill themselves too. Rich people get divorced too. Rich people get hooked on drugs too. But there's still, a general consensus that, if you make more money, you'll be happy. And it's just not always the case. It is just not always the case, So, see what else is going on. Voodoo Man says, do not spoil what you have by desiring what you do not have. Remember that what you now have was once among the things you only hoped for. Very, very eloquently put, and I agree completely. I apologize for the reading of these comments. I'm doing all of this on my phone, so like I said, this is pretty involved, and I got big fucking sausage fingers, so bear with me. Cherrytown Vibe says, MC, I could tell you from personal experience that for everything I got handed to me throughout life, it left me ungrateful and depressed. My baby boomer parents failed to teach me gratitude. And it to that point, the parent piece and what that encompasses. We know, as a general statement, I've said this before, like, we're supposed to be better than our parents. Our children are supposed to be better than us, but we need to quantify that at some point if we're going to measure, our rate of success. Like, what is it that our parents should be teaching us? And one of the things I'm very grateful for my parents, even though this wasn't their intent, is that they fucked a lot of things up because they tried their best, but they fucked a lot of things up. And as a result of that, I had to go through a lot of stress and pressures. But a lot of that helped forge me to who I am today. Now, my children, every single one of them, even my 7-year-old princess, if you, got them to trust you and, hey, what do you not like about daddy? They're all going to have something to say, and that's fine. I tell my children every day I love them. I tell them every day. My oldest doesn't want to hug me anymore, but I hug and kiss the rest of them. I'm very affectionate with my children. I'm very authentic with my children. I am never going to be a friend to them, though. I am always going to be their father. Now, that does not mean that as they mature, that we will not have an alliance that evolves, but that dynamic will never leave. There are things that my children will always be able to ask me for, and they'll be able to ask me for those things that surpass what they would be able to ask an ally or a brother for. a tribal brother at least. So I would say that when it comes to our parents, like our parents were duped, a lot of them. A lot of our parents were made weak. You know, my mother and father, for example, my father grew up in Puerto Rico until he was, I believe, 13, and he moved here. Didn't speak any English, learned English. Um, Took great pride in the fact that he could speak English, like he could do English voiceovers. He had a very deep voice, impeccable English pronunciation, no accent or anything, but didn't learn it until he was 12, 13 years old. Um, he had it rough. He had it a lot rougher than I ever did. My mother, however, my grandfather, came back from World War II, uh, married my grandmother, lived in Brooklyn. My grandfather was a truck driver, always provided for the family. My grandmother was a stay-at-home mom. It was picture perfect in a lot of ways. But my mother didn't grow up with a lot of that pressure, and she wound up paying for that as she got older, because she didn't have that same mindset that my father had the ability to forge. So when it came to raising my brother and I, my father was, um, I would say, almost dysfunctionally authoritative or disciplinarian, and my mother was dysfunctionally the opposite direction. But together they complemented each other to the point where it was functional. And I think had I not had that sort of sometimes inconsistent energy of what the parental narrative was, that I wouldn't have been able to explore or been prompted to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. Now I admit a lot of these things I've remedied, with my kids growing up. And I talked to a lot of my good friends. I remember having a talk with Goose about this, with my guy Anthony, two on Tom. A very common conversation, we have is a lot of us have childhoods where we could say we survived. Like I survived my adolescence. There wasn't any abuse in my house or anything, but I grew up in a rough neighborhood, and I was one of the rough people. I was one of the rough neighbors, right? And a lot of violence, and could have gone a lot of different ways. I'm tough because of how that forged me. But there are people who grew up alongside me who aren't here anymore because it was a numbers game. I would never expose my children to that type of environment, even though that's the environment that gave me a lot of what I feel are my valuable attributes, because I will never expose my kids to a numbers game like that, where it's like, okay, guys, there's four of you, one of you is not going to make it, but the other three are going to be pretty fucking squared away. Like, I'm not playing that game. So now I have to design a lifestyle that's filled with that same type of stimulus, those same types of stressors. And I would say same in the intensity of it, the effect of it, not the specificity of it. So it's one of those things where, as parents, it's like it's not your job to make sure that every day is easy for your kids. Like, you are training them. You are not, like, raising a child is training a child, is preparing a child. It's not protecting a child. The protection, it's like an inverse relationship with how much you stress them and how much you protect them. In the beginning, it's all protection. But there's a certain point where that starts to go by the wayside. And at the same time, inversely, you're starting to create more stress for them. Not dysfunctional, purposeless stress, but stress in the form of expectations, of schedules. Like, my kids have chores. My kids, they don't have social media. A lot of their friends do. They my son, my oldest son, got his first cell phone for his last birthday. He was 15 years old. My kids have tablets, but no cell phones. They, like, they're like this with fucking Wi-Fi, right? With their tablets and stuff. But the thing is, they're never going to be completely comfortable. I don't try to stress my kids out just fucking with them. But I'd be lying if I said, every one of my kids is basically immune to me making fun of them. One of my sons has really big ears, and I called him Dumbo for about 2 years. And, you know, he laughs about it. And my whole thing was, it's like, listen, and I told my wife this because she obviously wasn't a fan of this approach to fucking with the kids. And I told him, listen, like when I grew up, kids were fucking just ruthless when it came to those types of things. And I'm never going to be to the point where I'm trying to break any of my kids, but I'm going to fuck with them. And I told him, like, uh, I used to have a student in my school who I nicknamed Bat Boy, and I nicknamed him Bat Boy because he looked like a bat. And and I told him he had confidence issues when he first started training. And what I did was I named him Bat Boy, and I told him, because you look like the Bat Boy from the National Enquirer, things. This is when he was a teenager, 14, 15 years old. And my thought process was, I'm going to fuck with him more than anybody else is going to fuck with him. But I'm also, on the other side of it, going to empower him to the point where he's immune to anybody fucking with him. And that's the same approach that I take with my kids. I tell my kids, like, listen, anything that people are going to make fun of, I'm going to make fun of with you, to the point where you've heard everything. And you're going to realize those people are saying things because they're either trying to mess with you in a fun way, or they're trying to make you feel bad, which we never give anybody power with words. We call that magic, like, so there's a whole system of just empowering their relationship to the point where it's just not being distracted by these just useless artificial luxuries that everybody's lives, are everybody's convinced that they're dependent on these days, and it's ridiculous. Uh, this sounds similar to your speech on creating pressure, says Church Vibe. Absolutely. I'm nothing if not consistent. Derek Craig says, focus on trim. Yes. So the master the 24-hour cycle, it's the trim framework, and it's based on balance. What is it that you're doing every day? You guys go to thewarriorproject.com and buy that video series. Master the 24-hour cycle is the exact blueprint and framework of what I do to manage my life. Like, it is, and Derek or anybody else that's watched it can attest to this. Like, I literally go over what it is that I do, why did I do it. I do that every day, by the way, and it's like, I'm a happy motherfucker. My wife, she'll get pissed. I'm shouting her out here. But one of the things that she's always doing with me is she's always like, so are you going to stay home again today? She's like, don't you have anywhere to go? Don't you have any trips to go on? She wants to clean. She wants to fix shit. And I'm always, basically I'm always asking her to make me something to eat. And the whole thing is, I love my life. I did not always love my life. There was, maybe a decade ago, I made more money than I make now. And I was fucking miserable. I was miserable. My marriage was a fraction of what it is right now. My relationship with my then, 2 kids I had, was a fraction of what it is now. Why? Because I was playing the money game. I was playing the grind and hustle game. And listen, if that's where you're at in your life, do it. Absolutely. I'm just the guy that's going to call you on your shit if you ask me. As soon as you start chasing extra money at the expense of the time, energy, or resources you should be investing in your family, I'm going to call you out on it. Because that's the thing that matters. The thing that matters are the things that are connected to your identity, things that are connected to your legacy, not the things that fuel your luxury, not the things that fuel your convenience, not the things that impress strangers, right? Now in society, there's never been a time where more people haven't had their own relationship with themselves, their sense of self-worth, measured by the approval of people that have absolutely nothing to do with their lives. People are only happy if strangers like them nowadays. And that's how we're being conditioned to think. How do you want to stay immune to that? You got to disconnect. You got to get those people out of your fucking lives. At least for a time, those people, the fucking Zuckerbergs, the fucking Apple, and even Twitter. Like, listen, I'm a fan of what Elon's doing over there, but like, I mean, with all due respect, fuck Elon too. Like, he ain't fucking helping me and my kids. These people have a commitment to their own missions, good, bad, whatever. I don't fucking know, right? I've said before, I don't know if you guys know, I'm not a fan of Joe Rogan, but when I criticize him, I made this point. I don't know how good he is to his family. Suppose he eats with his family every day. He goes to his kids' events. He kisses his wife before he leaves every morning and texts her fucking smoochy faces during it. Like, I don't fucking know his relationship with the people that matter in his tribe. So I can't criticize that. I don't know that about him. Maybe he's a great dad, a great husband. I don't fucking know. I know in the alliance as a public figure, he's an asshole, but the thing is, we have to understand what matters. Another example, I had a friend once ask me about Gordon Ryan, and I think he had said something like, I really want to like this guy, but then I read one of his posts and he seems like an asshole. What do you think? And I said, listen, never mind, his jujitsu expertise, which he's the best guy on the planet, hands down. He treats his people like tribe. You see how he talks about and treats his teammates, his instructor, his girlfriend, his family. Like, I don't know anything that happens. This is, if you don't know about jujitsu, this is, something you're not even interested in. But those of you that are connected, there was a separation between him and a bunch of guys that he was training with, and his younger brother, went with the other group. I don't know what that's about, but what I do know that on the surface, from what I see, I don't know the guy. He always talks well about his guys. He always bigs up the guys that he's connected to. And I'm somebody that, listen, whether I respect you or not is not going to be how you treat me. It's going to be how you treat the people that matter. Because that means if I ever matter to you, then I'm going to be treated by that same, by that same type of formula, right? Those are the things that I track, right? And I will say, coming back to the trim framework, like, you need balance in your life. You need to be the guy that does not have a dysfunctional relationship with any of the foundational, components of your life, of your identity, of your lifestyle. Like, you can't do that and expect to be happy, expect to be, and when I say happy, I really mean light, right? As opposed to heavy, not as opposed to dark. Maybe that would work too, but light in terms of, light and heavy. Like waking up and just having, not this just overwhelming weight on your awareness every day. And, I always talk about the stories, right? The narratives, the abstractions that we all have. And we have to be very careful about the stories that we're telling ourselves. And when you have people that tend to overreact to stuff, you look at their life and they're usually, very good at some things. They're terrible at other things, which I guess isn't saying much. But aside from the huge disparity between those two things, they're always stressed out. Everything's always a big deal. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I got to wake up at 8 a.m. and my alarm clock isn't working. It's like, okay, fucking relax. Is there a store by here? Can we get another alarm? Do you know anybody that has an alarm that you could borrow? Like you could literally, there's probably a fucking phone number you could call and have somebody give you a wake up call. Like, calm the fuck down. It's like, do we have, a phrase that I've used before is you have people that are walking around with this stress of, I need an answer, but they don't have problems that they can articulate, and it's like, is this really an issue? When we sit down and think about it for 10 seconds, we have a solution. So maybe we shouldn't get anxious about it at all, even for only those 10 seconds. Maybe it's just some shit we got to do, you know? Um, there have been so many times in my life where, especially married and with kids, where it's like, all right, this just went sideways. This is a pretty big deal. How am I going to deal with it? I don't know, but I'm going to deal with it. You know, and this is the approach I have when it could be all right. Like I remember COVID hit, and my wife and I are talking, and she tends to be much more, anxious than I am. And she's like, "Well, what are we going to do?" And I'm like, "What are we going to do? Like, we're gonna see what we can get away with, and if that doesn't work, we're going to see what's available." And I pretty much trained my whole life to be worth the shit. Like, why? For times like this. It's one of those great like insurance policies as a man. When you're worth the shit, when shit hits the fan, you're as good as anybody's going to be. So don't fucking stress it. And that's my approach. I don't care if I'm wealthy, if I'm not wealthy. Like there is a point where it's like, yeah, I don't feel I'm doing my job if I can't provide, a flourishing, positive environment for my family. Doesn't have to be luxury ridden, obviously, given what I've been talking about, but it's like, yeah, let me not have my kids have to go and stand on a fucking food line. Maybe I should just work a little harder if that's what's going on. But by the same token, I have a phrase that I say all the time, but it's become like a thing in my house, and it's basically those times where I completely dismiss somebody saying that they're suffering in any way, and I'll just look at them and go, "You'll be all right," And it became the joke with my kids and everything. And they use it on me, which is always fucking hilarious. Like I've had my 10-year-old check me with this once. I had my daughter check me with this once, where I was complaining about, oh, my foot. Yeah, I think I banged my. You're right. It's like, yep, you're right. My bad. Acting like a little bitch. My bad. On me. I got it. And these are the things that I think people lost sight of. They lost sight of the fact that it's like it's okay. Like if you're injured, it's like okay, you fix it. There's this guy. Oh, you guys should give him a follow. I follow him, and I never really reached out to him. And admittedly, I just don't want to bother the guy. But he's this guy from Florida, and he had a jujitsu accident. I'm gonna look him up right now, and he got paralyzed. And he had a spinal injury, and he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, which pretty significant. I think he competed. I think he was a competitive brown belt, young guy. Spinal injury, paralyzed, and now on his Instagram, like it's basically him rehabbing his body on his road to recovery, and he is fucking paralyzed. Like he is in a fucked up situation that he has never, I'm sure it's happened, at some point, but on his public page, it is him still going to jujitsu, doing what he can, motorized wheelchair, trying to hit pads in PT, and there's an energy to him, there's an approach that it's like fucking A. Very, very fortunate guy, because although he did get that very serious injury, he's obviously in a situation where he can go to PT. He has a bunch of guys that are supporting him, but whatever, like he's still on a fucking journey of a lifetime right now, getting his health back, getting his mobility back. And his name is Ben Cuzzle. Ben Cuzzle. Let me try and put that there so you can see it. Ben Cuzzle. And you could see like his content is him like doing PT and stuff, and it's an incredible insight and an example of, it's like, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't do this a couple times already over the last couple of months. Having a bad day, just scroll by his page, and it's like, Justin, shut the fuck up and just do what you got to do, because that's what happens when we start the stories and we succumb to the conditioning. We close ourselves off and we lose sight of all perspective. Like that is literally the mechanism that occurs. we monopolize our perspective to the point where we can't see anything from any other place. So we have to have the rituals to sort of every once in a while shake that etch a sketch, right? So we're like, oh, we snap out of it and we get back focused to where we're supposed to be, right? All right. Goose said, "No Ruths growing up in the Bronx. Everyone got it. Anything embarrassing about you is up full blast, 100% of the time." What's up, Johnny? Hail, Jim Yankowski, my man. Good to see you. I think I'm seeing you soon too. Looking forward to it. All right. Jamie says some people are comfortable with fear, anxiety, and losing. They feel that something is wrong if those things aren't going, and so it will make them go on. Absolutely. Absolutely. AJ asks, do they ever ask for those things, for these things? And I think AJ, I think you're referring to the kids with all the things that I'm talking about. And of course they do. Of course they do. And, basically I say no, and I give them an explanation. And where that's concerned, let me just break that down. This will be the last thing that I go over. There are some people, and I've said this before, so maybe you guys have heard me explain this before, but I think it's relevant to connect with this. When some parents, kid says, why do I have to do this? Hey, throw out the garbage. Why? Because I said so. Some people say, never say that. Just explain to your kid why, and it's like that. Other people like, fuck that. I'll tell him what the fuck to do. I'm not his fucking. I'm not his coworker. I'm not his. I don't have to tell him shit. I tell him to do so. Well, I would say that the truth of it is between those 2 points, and here how I would make the distinction, and it's very relevant to do the kids ask for all these luxuries and things, which I think is the context of what you were asking. When I tell my kids because I said so, it's only because I feel that him asking me why he's being asked to do something is questioning the hierarchy of our relationship. He's questioning the validity of my authority. That's when I'll tell him because I said so. Because I know why it doesn't even matter. He's just stalling. So I'm just cutting that shit right out. However, there's plenty of times where I'll ask my kid to do something and he'll say why, and I don't feel that he's questioning my authority. I feel that he's actually just curious. And that's something that I want to incentivize with my kids. I want my kids to ask me questions about things I don't understand, and I will explain it in those situations. So do they ever ask for these things? They do. And a lot of times I'll explain to them why they don't get it. And it's not like I give them the explanation. They're like, oh, okay, got it. Thanks, Dad. Like, no, it's not like that at all. They'll, I'll always be like, does that make sense? Do you understand? I don't ask, do you agree? Is that okay with you? Like that's how it is. Do you get it? And my relationship with them is never going to be hinged on, them just being excited and ecstatic to get everything that I give them. So do they always ask these things? No, because you got to imagine growing up in a home where this is pretty much the norm. Like they have a pretty functional relationship with stuff. There's times where like I'll ask my kids if they want dessert, and it'll be like a Thursday or so. And like my wife was in Brazil. Hopefully she's not watching this, and I was getting the kids dessert, a little bit more often than Saturday because I wanted it to feel like a vacation. And my kids would say, no, I'm good. And it's like, holy shit, really? Like when I was a kid, I'd be snorting the ice cream, right? If you've given the opportunity. So they tend to have just a little bit more of a balanced level of expectation. One of my sons, we just had a party for him a couple of days ago, and we had a cake. And I'm one of those people that is just a fucking crackhead for cake with that thick icing, like the icing that you feel like when you bite into it, your teeth are going to disintegrate because it's so sugary. Well, one of my kids didn't have any cake. And I'm like, hey, Kaiden, my 10-year-old, 3, as we say in the house. I'm like, hey, bud, you're not gonna have any cake? It's really good. He tells me, he goes, no, I might have a cookie, because I don't really like cakes where the icing is very rich, and sugary. It doesn't feel good. I'm like, you're fucking 10. What are you talking about? But this is a testament to him growing up with these rituals, and again, with parents, I say all the time, just design the rituals in your home. Don't, because one of the worst things that parents do is they always think they're one explanation away from their kids understanding what they need to do. That's not the way it works. Like, think in terms of jujitsu. AJ is one of my jujitsu students. Think in terms of jujitsu. It's like you're not one lesson away from learning this one technique perfectly. There is a whole foundation that really leverages and leans on the relationship that you have. And when you have that relationship and you establish that relationship to a minimal point, other things are possible. Other things can be built on that foundation, right? So when it comes to changing, the environment in your home, it has to be ritual based. And yeah, and the pushback you'll get from kids, like in the beginning, it's going to be a lot of those "I told you because I said so" moments. It's going to be, well, I didn't ask you if you wanted to do this. I said to do it. Like, it's going to be some of that. And once that's squared away and they understand who's actually in charge, then they won't waste so much energy trying to negotiate with you. Because the thing is, it's like, yeah, you pull back a little bit when they push back, you're incentivizing them to push. And so I'm one of these people that, and I know a lot of it has to do with my personality. I am as stubborn as it fucking gets. Like, I am never going to lose a negotiation with one of my children. Like, nope, I'm going to last longer than you will. That's just how it is. And I think at a certain point, they didn't think it was worth fighting that because they understand that, right? So I hope that makes sense. Cheech911 says, that's a unique name, says, hey, MC, do you have any book recommendations on raising little children? My kiddo is a toddler and doing toddler things. Well, I guess that's good, right? What I can offer, and I mean, extremely biased here, but on my power programs, Strong Dad, Strong Son, and a Stronger Parent, right? Strong Dad, Strong Son, and a Stronger Parent. Those two programs are right, like they're pretty much what I designed to give parents a list of philosophies of mindsets that will be able to be customized to your individual experience. In a general sense, just to not just pitch a fucking program as an answer, it's your kids have to develop a relationship with their bodies. Your kids, you should be giving your kids affection. Your kids should know limits and boundaries. If you find yourself like some people, I'll give this one example because I could keep going on, but when I see parents with kids in like a restaurant or in a supermarket and the kid's screaming because they want something and the parent, just succumbs to the pressure because, they're embarrassed or whatever, it's like those parents should never bring their kids there because the kids aren't ready for it. And if, oh, well, I have to bring my kid, there's nothing I could do, then just understand, well, you're going to have to leave your kid screaming and crying in the store then. And, now you're that asshole, right? Which nobody wants to be, which I get it. But the thing is, you can't lose. Your kid pushes back, you can't back off. It's animal psychology, right? It's dog training. Like it's not calling your kid a dog, but I've used, any understanding of dog training. I've become fascinated with dog training because I realized the amount of overlap between, the psychology and leveraging of animal behavior with dogs and all of the parallels in raising children, and teaching children martial arts, which I have been for 20 years, so you can't negotiate. You have to stick by. It's not to say that you're not going to make mistakes. Meaning you're gonna push something that after you're done with it, you're like, oh man, I fucked that up. I should have done this. And maybe there's a certain point where you'll own that. But it's also not the expectation that you're perfect. So you don't owe your kids an apology because you made a mistake. That's not something that's inherent. But I will say, like having older kids now, it's soon to be 16, 13, 10, like, and they're sharp. I don't want to be a hypocrite in their eyes. So if I fuck something up, I'm already at a deficiency in their understanding of what I'm doing. So I will own it to the point where, it's understood. Right. So I'm not scared of owning my mistakes. It's also important for them to see that I don't hide my mistakes, especially when these motherfuckers know I made a mistake. Like I can't sit there and pretend like I didn't. I'm just full of shit to my kids now, So, but young kids, like as you're building up to that, like they don't deserve an explanation. They certainly don't deserve apologies. And I would only own my mistakes to them when I thought that was something that would also help them, not out of any guilt, or you're obligated to explain yourself to a 5-year-old. Like that shit doesn't make sense, right? So hope that helps. Cherrytown Vibe. Do you ever reach a point of being burned out as a father, though? Um, Burned out. There's some ambiguity with that phrase. I know some dads that get burned out and they go to get the 20-year fucking the milk journey. Um, are there times where I am in need of some rest? Yes. Are there times where my bandwidth is full and I cannot take on any more tasks or do not have the attention to dedicate to my children if they expect it or want it at that time? Happens all the time. Um, but being a father is such an integral part of who I am. To not want to be a father is to not want to be any other integral, necessary component of my identity. So I am a father, so there is no, I didn't want to be a father anymore. It's like, no, you just decided to be a shitty father. I'm not saying you, obviously, just, we all know people who just bailed on their kids. And I couldn't take being a father. Well, no, you're still a father. You couldn't take being a good father or a better father, so you just became a shitty father. But being a shitty father, you've built a relationship with it where it doesn't bother you anymore. But you're still a father, right? So that's how I look at the identity of being a father. Like you don't get to stop being a father. You're always a father. You could decide to just be a shitty one and not pay attention to it anymore. So I think that if there's any sort of permutation of burning out, how people look at that term, I would say all of it would benefit from what I was advocating for earlier, which is balance. All of it is for me manageable because I'm always finding that equilibrium. Very rarely will I have something stress me out more than a day or two. The most seemingly monumental things, it usually takes a day or two, in the extreme cases, for me to get my bearings back. But most things, like, I don't give a fuck. Doesn't bother me. On the highway, car fucking stops working. It's like, oh man, that sucks. It's like, oh, what are my options? What do I do? Happened last year. I bought a pickup truck and little was it S28? It was S20. Fucking brain fart. But a little pickup, older Chevy pickup, one of those little mini ones, which I always wanted one of those things to fuck around with, and I bought one. And my son and I, my oldest, were driving from PA to New York to go and train jujitsu. And I'm in Jersey on the highway, and I just see smoke all over the place. One of the transmission lines broke, and uh, smoke everywhere. car stopped working. It was on, but no transmission fluid, like can't go anywhere. And we were literally like halfway between my house and the school. And I'm there with my son, and he's like, "Oh, what's happening?" He's like freaking out because the first time it's ever happened to him. And I'm like, "What happened is the car ain't working." So he's like, "Well, what are we gonna do?" Well, hopefully your mother has a phone because she has a car. And I called, and I had to call the tow truck. My wife came, picked us up, and went back home. And like, what are you gonna do? Like, what am I gonna? My car's broken, and I'm in a bad mood. Like, fuck that. That's a double whammy. I don't do double whammies. Fuck that. So the thing is, when you have that balance in your life, the balance is the thing that heals you. It is the thing that stops you from getting like just destructively connected to one stressor in your life. It's like, no, it's just another piece of the pie. It's just another page on the book. Like, it's no more significant than that. But only balance allows you to maintain that perspective when your logic, can no longer achieve it. Right. All right, guys. I've been going a minute. Just for the record, I told my wife to take her mother and the kids to go and have an incredible lunch somewhere. So that they're off doing that. I gave her a time where she needs to be back, because I just did not know how this thing was going to go off. If you could see my setup here, I think you would be a little bit impressed. Oh, you know what? Maybe I should take a picture. You guys could probably see it on my big ass second phone. Where is the camera? There's the camera. Like this. So that's what I got going on. I got my Rode mic hooked up to a rig with my cell phone. That's the Galaxy S22 Ultra. And I got my stand. So I was going to point this down like the camera's going to. I got a stand here, and it all worked out. So I guess we'll call it there. I appreciate you guys. Todd, what's going on? What's up, Niels? I see you too. Yes, the beard is coming back. Trying to keep it trim and luxurious looking, but it's happening. AJ says I've become a technician. Listen, motherfucker, if I ask you to fix something, it'll take forever. AJ is one of my guys, just so you know. Corey, I appreciate you. Thank you, and you're welcome. All right, guys, I'm glad this went well. I'm in, again, Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. I'll be back in the mountains by next week, and I hope you guys enjoyed this talk. I'll see you guys then. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.